Transport and Telecommunication, Grisha Heliga Martin. Invited guests, Mr. Shervin Frederick, Senior Policy Advisor of the Department of ETT, Mr. Arion Newman, Yellow Sage Farms, and Mr. Denisha Wyatt from Spaceless Garden. Members of the media, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, Telemcell TV Plus Channel 15, respective radio stations island-wide, and online viewers. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the press conference on the St. Kitts and Nevis Agricultural Debriefing for today, Thursday, July 11, 2024. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, Grisha Heliga Martin, to address you. Minister Heliga Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika, and good morning to the media. Thank you for joining us today. Good morning to those listening and viewing online, and good morning to our guests here with us as well. First and foremost, on behalf of my delegation, I want to thank the government of St. Kitts and Nevis for receiving us and arranging and coordinating visits to the different sites that we visited. In particularly, I would like to thank Minister Samuel Duggins and Minister Eric Evelyn of Nevis and their staff. I also want to thank the farmers who welcomed us at their properties and took the time out of their schedule to explain us the particulars of this business and in great detail. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank the entire delegation, including our very own Mr. Jocelyn Richardson, who is currently working in St. Kitts, for his assistance and input before and during our visit. The main purpose of this visit was to get information on how agriculture sector on St. Kitts and Nevis is organized and how it functions in practice. This is important information that will be used for my ministry to establish a full-fledged agricultural department in line with the CAFA committee that was established in Parliament just last year through MP Westcott and myself. Another purpose was to discuss potential collaboration with our sister islands with regards to import of agriculture produce and exchanging knowledge. I will allow the delegation members to also share their experience briefly, and I believe I can speak for them when I say that the visit was very fruitful, right? And insightful. We'll explain the fruitful part later. The main takeaway of our visit was that agriculture can and should play a major role in the nation's development and self-reliance, and that there is a clear role and responsibility for government to facilitate this. Saying and believing this is one thing, but seeing and experiencing it firsthand, what a country the size of St. Kitts has been able to accomplish with the agriculture sector, was very informative and awe-inspiring and encouraging. Based on the information gathered and insights gained during our visit, our policy advisor, together with my cabinet, will establish concrete action points for short-term execution, taking into account the current agricultural policy. I'm just giving you an introduction, but I would like for you to hear it firsthand from our policy advisor, what the experience is, what the situation is with agriculture in St. Martin. So our current status, the last 14 years, and I say 14 years because that's how long our agriculture department has been established, and where we are today, what his experience was over there, and what his takeaway based on the last 14 years, what he sees we can do for the country moving forward. That will be the same thing across the board for both the farmers, what their background is, what they're doing here at St. Martin, what their experience, and what their takeaway was, and how we move forward. Thank you, Rolika.
Thank you, Minister Heliga Martin, for your opening remarks to this press conference. I would now like to invite Mr. Shervin Frederick, Senior Policy Advisor of the Department of ETT, to also provide you with his remarks.
Protocol being established. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, audience of St. Martin, for the opportunity. To piggyback on what the Minister said, of course, we've always had some form of agriculture on the books. It hasn't been optimal, it hasn't been, or it can be much better. This has been there even prior to 10-10-10. Now, this is on paper. We've also had, let's say, field officers in the field that some of the farmers are aware of. Nowadays, they are the ones who would give you permits or issue permits for animals to come in, just to give an example. But they do visit farms, but it's on a very, very small scale. What we were able to see in St. Kitts was really a demonstration, I would say, of what is possible. And a lot is possible. A lot is happening, a lot is going on St. Kitts right now and for some time. It's very close by, and so it's really, I would want to use the word amazing to see that so close, but still so far, there's so many good things taking place. So again, I'll thank the minister because it was definitely her call to go on this fact-finding mission where we were able to meet with key persons from the agriculture ministry, but also farmers. We got to hear their opinions, their concerns, their cries, their what they're happy about, et cetera, et cetera. So it gives us sort of a extended framework, I would want to call it, on what we can do, sort of how we can do it, I would want to say. But the idea is not to necessarily copycat 100% because they have specific procedures, regulations in place that we don't at this current moment that we may need to adopt here and there moving forward. So it's a work in progress. The department, at least the policy department, particularly in the last 3 years, I would want to say we've been very busy, very active with regards to agriculture. We have, since 2022, we've had the first National Agriculture, Livestock and Fishery policy, which was approved by the Executive Council at the time. It is being implemented with the team at the departments. We are trying to implement as much as we can. I won't go too much into details because there are some technical aspects where we've been doing some research, assessments, et cetera, but this trip definitely brought the farmers closer to what has been happening in the office because that has always been a goal. How do we get the paperwork to the field work? Spending a couple of days with the farmers and the minister, you get to have conversation outside of the office. You get to work on ideas in a way that you don't normally get when you're in the office and it's more based on official approaches and red tape. When you're on the field trip, you get to talk freely, you get to hear the opinions, and you get to share concerns or give suggestions. So I'll keep it short. That's what I would like to say. I think it was a great trip. I think we learned a lot, and I know we have a lot of work ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. Before I invite the farmers, I would like to re-invite Minister Heilige Martin.
Yes, thank you, Relaika. I just wanted to give a breakdown of what we did at the trip. So the first day, the Minister Duggins, we met with him in his office, and he gave us a full breakdown of where they are agriculturally. So what they're doing, they are on the program of 20 by 25. 20 by 25 is a CARIBCOM initiative where they want to cut import of food by 25% by 2025. Why I chose St. Kitts is because they're on that mission. So what they did, they took, I think, over $1 million $1 million EC dollars and pumped it back into all the farmers and subsidized the farmers. Subsidized so much so that they have now so much fruits and vegetables that they can't, that it's overly sustainable for St. Kitts. Many of the farms we visited were ready to trade with St. Martin. And cheap. Fisheries, everything. I mean, they have so much. So what we did, our first day, the next day we visited the agriculture department. And there they are doing everything. They are planting the seeds, and once they have grown to an extent, and I don't have the agricultural jargon, but I'm just paraphrasing here. The seedlings, they will then call farmers and say, hey, we have this type of these seedlings ready to sell, and they're going to buy it. Once the farmers grow it, they can come back to the agriculture department and they will package it and sell it for them. That's how much the Kittitian government is assisting their farmers. That's where I would love to be for St. Martin as well. We also visit fisheries. We also visit agricultural, aquaponic, backyard farming. And this was in Nevis. We took a trip also to Nevis the second day. In Nevis, they're doing agro-tourism. That means a person right now in their backyard created a aquaponic setup where they set up a bar where they can have people come on a tour, visit them in the backyard, and give them fresh juices. And that's a tour. So imagine what we can do with tourism and agriculture in St. Martin. So these were the different areas we went to, and I think I'll let the farmers now take over and let you know what their experiences and what they learned, because I'm sure they gain a wealth of information. And Verlaika, with that, I would like to just give the floor to them.
Thank you, Minister Heilige Martin. I would now like to invite Mr. Arion Newman of the Yellow Sage Farms.
Good morning, everyone, members of the press, viewers at home, Honorable Minister of Tourism, Teat. Well, my name is Arion Newman. I was born in the Netherlands, but raised here on this beautiful little island of ours. I grew up in a little neighborhood of Simpson Bay, a little fishing village. My grandmother is one of the greatest inspirations for me to get into farming. She has been introducing fruits, herbs, and spices to me from a little kid, from drinking bush tea to picking passion fruits in the backyard. And even when I was little, selling some at the fish market. I used to sell 4 of them for $1. She said I was way too overpriced. But yes, other than that, right now I am the co-founder and managing director of Yellow Sage Farms. We are a hydroponic farm located in Madam Estate. We have a 40-foot container that's all-encompassing, basically, so we control the climate inside of that container. Inside a container, we can grow up to 6,000 heads of lettuce at full capacity. With a turnover of about every 3 weeks, we can have it filled and shipped out. We just had the NRPB help us with a bit of a grant, and we now have a 30-foot by 60-foot greenhouse with 42 towers, each scaling about 3 meters tall. Each tower can hold about 52 plants inside of the tower. At the moment, we are just in our experimental phase. Our first seedlings only got planted in October, so right now we're just testing out what works best with our system. Seeing that St. Martin is a very tiny island, we had to look for these different options. For example, vertical farming, as we're doing inside of our container in our greenhouse. We don't have much soil that's quickly aggrable. You can't really turn up the soil too quickly, and where we are, there's lots of rocks. The soil is a bit clayish, so it retains too much water, or when it dries out, it becomes too dense for roots to easily pass through. So we decided to go that route. Of course, we have a multitude of natural fruit trees spread out throughout the island, and with that, we took notice that on our property, we have the acerola cherry tree that's growing wild here throughout the island. And we are moving towards, based on what we witnessed in St. Kitts with all of their orchards, we are planning to do the same thing here. Now, moving on into St. Kitts, for Denisio and myself, growing isn't a new thing. How they are growing is not a new thing, but the scale of what they are growing at is a big difference. For those that don't know, St. Kitts removed the majority of their sugarcane fields and now have been transforming what was a sugarcane monocrop into a multitude of different crops. So when you go there now, you can see the greenhouses on the sides of the street that were granted or subsidized by the agriculture department. A multitude of them. And these greenhouses are a minimum of 100 feet long by, I believe, 30 feet wide as well. And it's impressive to see that the agriculture department was able to provide that for them, particularly noticing that the majority of this came about just at the beginning of COVID, when people noticed, okay, the supply chain is a bit fragile at the moment. We can't readily take in food and produce from these larger countries, though it might seem like, okay, yes, they're producing things at a larger scale, yes, but the quality of your produce will not be the same as if I'm bringing my stuff from Madam Estate to you in Don Beach, for example. And we can make that happen now, knowing that, like I mentioned before, we can turn over our crops very easily. They're doing different crops than we are doing here because of the space that they have, but that does not limit us from being able to do the same. And that's the main point. of us going over there to realize that, yes, we are tiny. We are a quarter of their size with 3 times their population. But we can feed our own population with the size of lands that we have here. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dionisio.
Thank you so much, Arion. I would now like to invite Mr. Dionisio Wyatt of Spaceless Gardens.
Thank you, my brother. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Honorable Minister. Good morning, Mr. Fredericks. Good morning, viewers of the press and the general public. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to be here this morning to share a little bit about my experience with the trip to the Minister in St. Kitts and Nevis, a little bit about my background. Well, I am Dionisio Wyatt, a born St. Martino. Most know me through the struggle of agriculture itself, trying to get the awareness building up, off, and running within our communities. Over the past 10 years, it has been quite an adventure for me, most particularly venturing into it because of my health, being sick with epilepsy. And so with that, venture going a little bit deeper into agriculture and exploring different options when it comes to health and nutrition, looking at your food as your medicine, it really fascinated me on how food could really save somebody's life. Today we look at the obesity problems, the health problems that we face amongst our communities and in the world in general, and we wonder how did we get there? And it's a simple factor, and it all begins with the food that we're consuming today. Foods filled with unhealthy foods, and then foods also filled with so many different synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. These trace minerals eventually also do play a key role. And then we have a lot of greasy foods and junk foods. People stray so far away from when we were like little children running through the communities, and what was fun for us was to run up in a kinip tree or run up in a mango tree and basically enjoy that fruit of the land. We came a long way now after so much hurricanes, so much overdevelopment, that we're now in a position where, food production on the island is so minimum. So for me, a few years back, dealing with my own health issues, being in Curacao, for example, and just walking through the start in Curacao, there was like a little juice bar everywhere in the town, and for me, that was really nice, to get a fresh juice just walking on the road. It was so difficult here to get that experience because everywhere along the road there's either fast food or a Spanish bar or a Chinese restaurant. So to get something healthy was very minimal. So I saw that in Curacao in 2010 when I went away to get my annual MRI scan, and I came back with that concept to the community to start a smoothie bar, a fresh, natural juice smoothie bar in the middle of the community. And for me, it was very important to do so because, again, like I say, within the community, there was nothing healthy along the strip that you could actually indulge in, So during that time of opening the smoothie bar in the front of the road, I got so many different visitors and people were stopping by and, buying smoothies and really liking the introduction of this new juice to the community. So with that, I end up, meeting different people that also asked me at one time. I met Mr. Richardson in the past and was asking me, like, you grow these fruits, I was like, man, I can't grow nothing. That's what we were conditioned to believe from a young age coming up when everybody transitioned off the land into the hospitality sector. And so with that, I didn't really take it on too much. And sometime down the line, we end up, my stepfather, who is originally actually from St. Kitts, grew up in Anguilla and also lived in St. Lucia. His background has always been planting food. So one day we was in Green Fingers and he was like, hey, let's buy these pack of seeds. Let's just try something, in the front by the house by the smoothie bar. And he came back home. Bear in mind, during that time, I was still suffering from epileptic seizures. So it was really a part of my life where every day was a distraction, So he went ahead, planted the seeds and everything. Maybe 3 months passed. Tell you the truth, I didn't even see these things growing for the past 3 months right in front of my door, so distracted, right? And he came inside one day and he was like, look, the peppers, look, there's broccoli, sweet pepper, bell peppers, seasoned peppers, eggplant. And I was like, what? That look good. Where you get them in the shop? And he was like, how you mean in the shop? Like these growing right outside in front of the yard. And so I went outside and take a look. And I think for the first time seeing these things actually grow was really what changed my life, And that allowed me to want to venture deeper into more research on how these plants grow, how best ways to maintain them. And I ended up on Dr. Sebi and Your Food is Your Medicine. And you know, 6 years into the journey of tilling the soil, being in the land, eating from the land, I was actually, my seizures was just reduced tremendously. By the 7th year, my seizures was totally gone. And so for me, it has been more of a venture of having this second chance to be able to educate people for the future on what the benefits of our land and our food have for our people. So for me, in the past 10 years, it has never been agricultural development. It has always been awareness building. And so with the farm that I established from a community garden to an agricultural research and development center, we basically took the time to build a facility where we can educate. And I think this trip to St. Kitts was so amazing because it got to see so much where we're lacking, so much where we can improve. I mean, the ministry there assists the farmers, again, with seedlings, they assist with land, they assist with equipment, they assist with water tanks, fencing. I mean, once you are willing, and it has its pros and its cons because those that are not fully willing sometimes take advantage of the situation. But for those that are truly willing, they're making tremendous progress. And I think just with that trip and what we saw can really add so much value back to the knowledge that we already have and how we can move forward here for Country St. Martin. So I would love to definitely thank the Honorable Minister for allowing us to be exposed to that. And I think St. Martin government can definitely do a whole lot more to assist with food production moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wyatt. I would now like to once again re-invite Minister Heilige Martin.
Thank you, Relaika. So with that, what's next? What's next for us? What's next is capacity building. Capacity building starting in schools. You know, we have a pilot project, which I will, if I can, for a short brief, I'll allow Mr. Frederick to break that down for us, what's happening and what we're planning to do in the schools, our program we have right now. What's next is subsidy, supporting the farmers. Right now, our agricultural budget is 175,000 guilders. That's $100,000. That needs to be increased. And secondly, working with Holland, working with TWO to see how we can get more support for our existing farmers. Third, what's next? Entrepreneurship, because everyone can anyone can become a farmer. Minister Duggan said one thing that's resonated with me to this day, and it's actually sparked a light in me. He said, because he is also a farmer. He's a farmer as well. So he said, when you grow your own and eat what you've grown, it's empowering. It's a feeling that you get when you eat what you've grown from your own hands. And I'm going to start with that. So I left with some seasoned peppers from St. Kitts, and I'm going to start growing because I love seasoned peppers. I'm going to grow that in the back of my yard. So I'm going to start. I never grew anything, but that's my first start. And secondly, there's also a pilot project we're working on. I'll have Mr. Frederick as a supermarket pilot project we're working on. I'll let Mr. Frederick also elucidate on that. But most importantly, food security for St. Martin, self-sustainability for St. Martin is where we're headed. How are we going to put it in place? We're still on the fact-finding mission. I still have some more people to meet. I still have some more places to go and finally come with a full-fledged idea, a full-fledged breakdown of where we want to take agriculture. With that, Relaika, we just want to have Mr. Frederick just break down these, and then maybe we could take it over for some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Frederick.
Thank you, Minister. Regarding education, like I stated earlier, the ministry has been working on several projects, I would say, since 2022, one being the policy. We've also assisted with some a research document that we hopefully will be making public pretty soon. It has already been shared with several of the farmers. This was done in collaboration, or we were part of the project which USM was led by USM, I would want to say, in the area of education, particularly public, elementary, on the elementary level. We've also been supporting several schools. I think we started off with 7 schools, and now we're up to 11 schools that get a small grant or subsidy, depending how you frame it, to support their agriculture efforts. Several schools have taken it upon themselves to start little backyard gardens, and the ministry took notice thereof, and we started to support them in being able to purchase the materials or the goods that they would require to sustain their projects. Of course, we saw this as, I would want to call it, supporting, but also a pilot project to see how can we work on, encouraging the youngsters, the youth, to get involved. This is something the ministry has done. We still have to broaden it out, have the more in-depth discussions with the Ministry of Education. Of course, you want to talk with some farmers for them to be part of the program, so there's much more room for growth. Another project we'll be working on shortly, which would be in October, is hydroponics train-the-trainer program. That's a project where we'll be training persons within schools. So the schools have identified individuals who work within their communities who would become trained. We will build hydroponic systems in these 8 schools, and then they will grow their lettuce or whatever green leaves they choose based on recommendation from whomever will be involved in the project. So that project is funded through GO, which is Green Overseas. It is a EU-funded project, and we are happy that we were selected, or at least our proposal was accepted. So this is something we're going to also be doing in the schools. Hydroponics is more modern technology, and again, it helps particularly when you look at land space. As Arian already pointed out, Mr. Newman, you don't need much space to yield a lot. So bringing this knowledge home, and that's why it's a train-the-trainer. The idea is to train persons, not only in the schools, even though I said that first, but we left room open for individuals from the community to also be part of the project so they can learn as well. They can train others, and hopefully we get a good spin-off of this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. I would now like to open the floor to members of the media to pose questions. Bibi Hadshaw, SMN News. But Bibi, before you begin, can you also indicate who you would like to have addressed so they can go to the podium? You have the floor.
The Minister of TEAD, please. Minister Heiliger, you mentioned that about this trip that you just initiated, and you also said that this is on the books 14 years now, agriculture. When would government, for example, first of all, regulate the situation with the land that Mr. Wyatt is dealing with for over 10 or 15 years or however long? I mean, as long as I can remember, this is something Mr. Wyatt is dealing with, land not being regulated. And we're talking about land. We want to help farmers. I think the first place to begin is right there. St. Martin do not have land, like you said, and there's a lot going to be expounded on hydroponics. What about having agriculture as a subject in school, getting it in the syllabus of St. Martin?
That's exactly it. Both things that you just mentioned is 100%. Another thing I didn't mention for us is that we want to maybe even have the farms, whatever farm that, but if you're using your land space for agriculture, that it would not be taxed. That's one of the things we're looking at in general. When I talk about subsidizing and supporting the farmers, I mean it holistically there, not only with land, but also with water. That the water is at a low price or free, depending. We still have to work that out. But when I talk about supporting the farmers, look what St. Kitts is doing for their farmers. I mean, we need to go all the way and bat for our farmers as well. Secondly, when it comes to education, capacity building, that too, it should be a syllabus in the schools. I agree with you. That's the one thing that we, not only these pilot programs, but it should be a full syllabus in school. And I think Mr. Jocelyn Richardson wrote a syllabus a while back about on it. So that's something we can also look into and have execute. So yes, indeed, those are the key areas we'll be looking at. Thank you. Should I stay? Yes? Okay.
Stephen Cyrillian of PJDT Radio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to you, Minister. Gentlemen, good morning to you as well. Minister, agriculture is a broad subject. You traveled to St. Kitts, you made mention of Mr. Wyatt and Mr. Newman. Did you take into consideration the fact that animal and fisheries falls under agriculture, and how do you intend to incorporate those segments of agriculture into the broader scope of understanding what we're dealing with?
Yes. So when we started a committee in Parliament, it's called CAFA, Committee of Animal Husbandry, Fishery and Agriculture. So what we forgot to mention, or I didn't think any of us mentioned it, we also visited some farms where we saw pigs, we saw goats, I also requested from the committee, the agriculture committee there, not committee, the agriculture department, if they can send us all their policies regarding everything fishery, farming. We're looking at agriculture on a full, broad scale. So we are looking also, the thing is, what's the situation we have in St. Martin here? We have farmers, we have people that have pigs and goats, but they were not allowed to butcher them on the Dutch side. They would have to go to the French side to butcher them. We need to have our own, what do you call that?
Atelier.
Yes.
Abattoir.
Abattoir. So that too we're looking at doing. I'm going to get into the agricultural jargon in 2 weeks. I'll be, by the time I plant my own greens, our own abattoir. So that too we're looking at, for sure. So on a broad scale, most definitely.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Emily from Island 92 Radio, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you. You mentioned about subsidizing.
Yes.
I mean, land cost is expensive.
Agriculture is expensive.
Water is expensive. So let's say subsidizing water, GB is not in the greatest of financial situations. And government, as you mentioned in the last press conferences, needs to cut 32 million guilders from the budget.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about finding resources to subsidize, how do you reconcile that against the financial realities of the utility company and government itself?
I also mentioned that we're going to be working with the TWO on this. We can ask there for subsidy, and I'm trying my utmost, Emil, not to cut anything under agriculture as well. But also, we are looking at not only this 175,000 guilders, we're looking to also finding a way to increase that in the next 2025 budget. And once we have, I think we have the financial backings once we have a plan in place. They're waiting for us to show us the plan. And by this fact-finding mission will allow us to do that. Another thing we want to do, and I think I told it to them verbally, I told it to them both verbally, they need to be self-sustainable. I would love to see our farms, our existing farms now, completely off the grid. Most of them are going there already. I saw that at our root farms, and Mr. Denicio White as well is like 75% there. So that is one of the, I would love for government to get them all off the grid to become more self-sustainable. Agriculture is expensive. So what we have right now, we want to just protect and support as much as possible.
So we move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
All right. You said you have in subsidy now 175,000. What has government done for farmers financially? What have you provided, or what have they provided for not these farmers alone, because we have a number of farmers on the island.
Yes.
What exactly has government done for any of them?
Mr. Frederick can explain what they've been doing with the 175. It's mainly for schools. It was never in the past. I don't think they've subsidized and assisted any farmers in the past with the 175 at all, right? If I'm just to be clear. So nothing.
How soon these farmers or even schools will see something from government, something, not just promises or that we are working on it or we are seeking funding, when they would actually see something so that they can encourage the farmers or even students to go out. I heard you said you brought back seeds. Maybe you don't know, but I've been farming from the day I came to St. Martin.
I gotta visit your farm.
Yeah,
Your backyard farm.
I plant. I have a backyard.
I heard you saying that once.
Backyard garden.
Yes.
I mean, it's not new. It's something I do all my life. I have
never
a
done it,
son
though.
that is a 2-time cancer survivor. He said it.
Yes.
How healthy it is to eat your own food. When exactly are we going to stop talking and acting?
But that's what we're doing right now. This actress is right here acting and executing. You asked me when. Do understand that's a very high and broad question given the political situation we're in right now. I cannot set deadlines. I can only tell you after August 19th. How about that? But I'm going to do my best to put things in play prior to and as much as possible once I'm hopefully stable in this ministry or in this cabinet, that I can now maybe set deadlines for the maybe last quarter. I would like to see something done towards their assisting them. Whether I have to go to the private sector to help them, that's what I would have to do, whether I'm in or out. But I truly and wholeheartedly believe we need to focus on food security given what's happening in the world today. It means we need to, I learned it from a dietitian over there. I said, I believe in the 5 Ps. They said, no, there's a 6 P. So the 5 P is proper planning prevents poor performance. They said, no, it's 6 Ps. I said, how is that? He said, proper planning prevents pissy poor performance. And we don't want to be pissy poor. So with that, that is my, that's what I'm focused on. It's a vision, a futuristic vision for the country. And it's not something that I can do in 1, 2, 3, but if I can, now that I see the needs and the wants of what's there right now, I'm going to work on that personally and as a minister as well.
Has government taken the initiative? For example, we're talking about hydroponic because of the lack of land space.
Right.
Have government taken the initiative to talk to at least the hotels on the island to start doing some hydroponic, planting their own lettuce, their own kale, their own stuff? And I mean, they don't have to sell, but they can use it in their restaurants on site.
That's nice, but I would like to empower our farmers to maybe sell to them. I think the Yellow Sage is already doing it, selling to some of the businesses. Why can't we get them to sell to the hotels as well? Maybe have our farmers sell to the hotels, you know?
Thank you, Bibi. Stephen?
Minister, I think you made mention that we do have an agriculture department.
Yes.
How many persons employed with
Good
this
question.
department?
It's not much of an agriculture department, it's a policy department. So it's ETT. Yes, maybe you should come. So ETT is the Economic, Traffic and Tourism Department that does agriculture, and we have the department
in the ministry, agriculture is divided between the policy and between inspectorate.
Yeah.
So the inspectorate is responsible for the execution of with regards to agriculture, and of course the policy department is responsible for policy. But the agriculture part that is, let's say that we're referencing, it's not a department necessarily. It's what we call a subsection, because there's a section within the department that has economic responsibility and agriculture and animal husbandry, fishery responsibilities.
So the plan is to have a full-fledged agriculture department. The plan is to even try and get the TIAT, the A in TIAT to be agriculture. So tourism, economics, agriculture, traffic, and telecommunication. If we could take that A and make it agriculture and have a full-fledged agriculture department, full functioning agriculture department, that's really the key takeaway here.
I'm happy you made mention of that, but how close are you to achieving that goal?
Yes.
In that you're able to set up an effective agriculture department to at least help assist with the farmers?
So right now we're still on a fact-finding mission. We're just gathering information, and then we will meet with some professionals to see, and internally, of course, with PNO, with the HR department, to see how we can set up our own department. So right now, like I said earlier, I asked the agriculture department of St. Kitts to forward me, if possible, all their policies, their laws, so I can model them and create our own departments. I'm still in the fact-finding mission. I'm still in the part of structuring it together. I could only hope and wish that it can be done in 2-3 months, possibly.
Thank you.
Because funding would have to be also supported. You know, we would have to make sure support that full department as well. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Minister. Emil?
The concept of supporting agriculture and improving its linkages to tourism is something that's been discussed throughout the Caribbean. The development of what they call farm-to-table type programs,
which
again, is
Tunisia is
something
doing.
that doesn't need to be reinvented. It's prevalent throughout the Caribbean.
Correct.
And there have been discussions with the hospitality sector, for example, who spends quite a bit of money on landscaping around their hotels, and that they could transition their landscaping from simply decorative palm trees to plants that actually produce fruits, and then they can incorporate that into their farm-to-table program. Do you have any thoughts in terms of how you might better integrate the push to improve the agricultural production on the island directly with the tourism sector?
That idea that you just provided me with there, it's a great idea. It's exactly what Bibi was saying. But, that, like I said, it's a holistic approach, a holistic vision to see how we can do it to include agri-tourism with the hotels and tours, and also how we can do it capacity building wise. We would have to take everything into consideration when we come out with this structure, when we come up with this full-fledged department. That will be for sure taken into consideration. But indeed, I like the idea, Bibi and yourself, Emily, to maybe even work with the hotels to get that done. But I want to make sure it's done in collaboration with our farmers, for sure, and with our farmers. So at least with that, make sure our farmers are part of that project and that they are the ones facilitating it.
Okay, St. Martin has a number of invasive species.
Oh, yes.
Iguanas and monkeys. I've seen a number of attempts for people to do backyard gardening, which has just resulted in happy monkeys and iguanas. Is there any plan to tackle invasive species on the island if you're going to tackle agriculture?
You know that St. Kitts is worse than St. Martin. A matter of fact, they told us in St. Kitts that they have more monkeys than the population themselves, that the humans. You know, but I am working on developing, finding out how they're working, how they're mitigating it. But I saw some of the farmers, what they're doing. They have a fence and electricity. Yeah. So, and then what we also learned, what the farmers also learned, is that there's just this black matting where they put all their produce, where they grow their plants. It gets so hot that the monkeys would not go on it because it's too hot, or it's either they're not going on it because it's hot, or that it's foreign to them. So that too is helping them with the monkeys. But Mr. Frederick, I think, has a statement, something he wants to say further.
Yes. Regarding invasive species, I just would like to mention we are currently in discussion with our neighbors on the northern side to address this issue or look into this issue with assistance of European funding. So that is a project in itself that's been, it's recently come on stream, and I think as in the last 2 months, we're still in discussions as to how we're going to approach this. Monkeys, iguanas, those are predominantly the two invasive species that we would be looking at, even though there are, of course, more invasive species, such as the snails. We even have the raccoon, and some people, those with eggs, would go as far as to complain about the mongoose. But it is a project that we're working on as we speak.
I remember the last project they had was only on the Dutch side. So when I heard it in Parliament, I'm like, okay, so you're going to do it only on the Dutch side, so the monkeys on the French side will not cross the border. Okay, fine. To me, it was kind of like, it made absolutely no sense. But yes, as you heard from Mr. Frederick, we'll be doing it in collaboration with the French side as well.
Thank you, Minister. Are there any other questions from members of the media?
Yeah.
Stephen?
The farmers. How much of your produce being sold to the supermarkets? Either of you could answer that question.
Currently,
Ed, can you go to the podium, please?
Currently, we haven't been selling to the supermarkets as yet. as I mentioned, we're just in our test phase, but the majority of our produce, for example, we have a large amount of kale that we distribute to Fit Foods. Lots of our lettuce go to the restaurants. We have several restaurants, cilantro as well, for example. And they're at us every week for pounds and pounds of lettuce, for example. So we're doing well on that side, and it's only going to get more increased.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Mr. Wyatt, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, sorry. But currently, right now, we're not really producing on a commercial level to put into supermarkets. But in the past, we did test a few supermarkets in the community, both small and big supermarkets, to see the potential of the produce. And it's really about consistency. Like I mentioned before, we're at the Agricultural Research and Development Center. We're focused on demonstrating different ways, hydroponically, traditional grow boxes. So we might have a limited amount of stuff. But the idea of why we do it that way is to educate and train more farmers, that hopefully we can definitely get one farmer to say, hey, let me show you how you can grow 2,000 tomato trees, and now we can add a value to the supermarket supply and demand chain. Because the reality is, even with the little capacities that we grow, remember, these supermarkets, these restaurants, these hotels, they have consistent clients and consumers. So for them to be able to take from us right now with limited capacity is also a risk for them too as well, because they don't, if tomorrow they need lettuce and we can't provide it, and they stop their other suppliers, then it also puts a damper on their business. So to consider that we do need to build up on a level of capacity. Right now, I think Mr. Newman could agree with me that our focus is making sure that the community can get access to it right now as best as possible. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wyatt. Hemo?
So this is for Mr. Newman. Yes. So perhaps just a clarification. If I understood, you said you have a 40-foot container that produces 6,000 heads of lettuce over what period of time?
Every 3 weeks.
Every 3 weeks. And you turn over a batch of lettuce every 3 weeks?
Yeah, perpetually. Every 3 weeks we can have close to 6,000 heads of lettuce.
And so have you reached the point now where you are financially viable and sustainable?
Well, we've planted our first seeds in October, sir. So you have to think of it this way. Once you plant your seed, you have to wait 6 weeks before you get your first crop. From there, our nursery allows us to have the second crop already in line. So from there, we can go every 3 weeks, and we have a crop ready. We go from, so you have an image of what goes on. Once you plant your seed, as your seed grows from its seedling size to about 3 weeks old, we move that into a cultivation center. So our cultivation center remains in there for another 3 weeks. So in that time, the plants are in the cultivation center for their 3 weeks. The next batch is already coming up. So it stays perpetual, continuously, over and over again. Crops like kale, for example, we can harvest directly from that one tree, continuously from that one tree. We don't have to swap that tree out. We wait another 2 weeks, for example, for kale. We can turn over kale every 2 weeks.
So at this stage, has your business reached a point where it's financially viable and sustainable on its own?
No, at the moment we're still in our testing phase. Okay. We have a variety of different fruit, vegetables and herbs and spices within the container. And if, with a little bit of knowledge, you know that leafy greens, for example, if I want to grow lettuce and I want to grow basil, basil has a different nutrient requirements to lettuce. So at the moment, our system has a very neutral base of nutrients, so we can grow a variety of things, but not to its optimum. Right now, we're scaling down to see, okay, we've tested out different things. We distributed to just about every single restaurant on the Dutch side. The French side has different requirements. If I have to sell on the French side, for example, I need to have crop insurance and a variety of different things. So, and for example, GB, we use 5 gallons of water in our system a week. That is nothing. That's absolutely nothing. Electricity is a bit expensive at the moment, but we do have ways that we supplement the electricity. Everything is on a timer, so no time is wasted. Yeah, that's basically it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Newman. Members of the media, that does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. I would like to re-invite Minister Heilige Martin to just provide you with some closing remarks before we end this press conference. Minister Heilige Martin.
Thank you, Alaika, and thank you for that. I was nudging Mr. Newman to explain that is his biggest expense, is his electricity. Imagine that he only spends $20 a month on water, 5 gallons that he can use for 1 week. Imagine that. So with this, I want to make a closing statement. Just think about this. Nevis has 12,000 in population, and they are 36 square miles. Same as St. Martin, the entire St. Martin, 12,000. So imagine how much land they have and how much opportunities they have to grow. St. Kitts has 64,000 in population, and it's about double the size of St. Martin. Again, imagine how much they can grow. It takes us 20 minutes, a 20-minute flight from St. Kitts to St. Martin, a 1-hour boat ride from St. Kitts to St. Martin. Imagine how fresh the fruits there. Imagine how fresh we can get the fruits. It is 16 EC, I'm sorry to say it, per pound for fish in St. Kitts. Here we spend $17. It is very expensive. Food in St. Martin is expensive. And if there's opportunities there that we can work together with St. Kitts and Nevis, and maybe one day have a mutual agreement on how we can collaborate with St. Kitts, not to go against the farmers, but at least have an intake of what they have and what we need and collaborate with them and make food cheaper for St. Martin, then that's the way we want to go. With that, I'd like to thank you for listening and tuning in and understanding the importance of agriculture and how important it is for the future of agriculture in St. Martin. Thank you, Alaika, and thank you for everyone for being here.
Honorable Minister of Tourism, invited guests, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of this press conference for today, Thursday, July 11, 2024. For rebroadcast, tune into stmartingov.org, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, Telumcel TV Plus Channel 15, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and YouTube channel Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Roleika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.